And, of course, I'm talking about a former three-time NWA champion, a two-time TNA heavyweight champion, and, of course, a two-time IWGP heavyweight champion. He's also a member of the Bullet Club, but he's always going to be phenomenal, and that is AJ Styles. Thank you so much for joining the two-man power trip of wrestling.
Yeah, man, that was a pretty good introduction there. I've got to give you that.
Oh, thank you so much. I practiced it all morning, so hopefully it did sound good. So basically, we're going to get into your complete and awesome storied career. I know my tag team partner's chomping at the bit to do so. He also has been practicing all day. So without that being said, we're going to get into a little maintenance first, and that is some of the hot topics that are going on right now. And it's been reported over the last couple days, a couple sources saying, that maybe your health could be in jeopardy right now for a couple big events, specifically Final Battle and Wrestle Kingdom, pertaining to maybe a herniated disc. But let's ask first, most importantly, how is your back? How's your overall health? And will you be participating in said events?
As far as right now, I definitely plan on doing both events. Just rehabbing a little bit on the back. Don't know if it's a slip disc or a herniated disc. It was very minimal, but which is good news. The doctor says it's mostly seems like it's muscle. So it basically has some rehabbing that, and I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm doing, just got into some DDPY. He doesn't like it being called yoga, but because it is a little bit different. But I'm telling you, man, this thing has done wonders for me. And it's not every day you do DDPY and you get your heart rate up to 150 just stretching, and it's awesome.
Yeah, completely changing the lives of not just professional wrestlers who have really gone on, a huge platform and promoted it for DDP, but, changing the lives of human beings and really changing the way people look at, we'll call it Y, but, essentially yoga as a form of exercise. But specifically talking to your back, now, obviously your style is very physical. You do a lot of movement, air, ground, you cover it all. So how is it preparing, for a match or whatever you're going to be doing physically if you're going to be, kind of favoring something as essential to your performance as your back?
Well, I don't plan on favoring it. If it's something that I have to favor, then I'm not 100%. And if it's not 100%, then it's just going to get worse. So, but I believe, next week about this time, I'll be ready to go. I don't really see anything messing with me, and I'm not in a lot of pain. For starters, I was, and I didn't want to make it worse, so that's why I came home from the tag tournament. But like I said, after rehabbing it, I feel like I'll definitely be ready to go in the next week, and it'd be 100%.
Now, I know I don't want to kill the back to death, but this is just out of curiosity. But how was a ride back from Japan when you're kind of favoring a back injury and sitting in the upright position like that for an extended period of time?
Yeah, it sucks. There's no good way to handle a back injury when you're sitting in there. But you deal with it. You try to sleep most of the time and figure out a good plan to get it back in shape. Got plenty of time to think about it. 14 hours on a plane.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Never did it, but can't imagine what that could possibly be like. So now, continuing with the maintenance and hitting the hot button issues. So now another thing that's been, kind of swirled out there in terms of the rumor mill, and there's different sources that could be wrong, and that's why we want to get it from the horse's head, and that is rumors of interest from WWE and NXT. And ever since you left TNA, it seems like literally every day there's some kind of news item about AJ Styles and where he's going to end up. And you basically single-handedly changed the way independent wrestling is viewed since you left TNA, because you've made the indies basically a place to be now. But now with WWE NXT scooping up Samoa Joe and James Storm is in there, both former TNA cohorts of yours, is there any truth to that rumor as well, that there's still pursued interest by WWE to get you into NXT or just into the WWE period?
I haven't had a call from someone who wants to hire me. Nothing really. And I'm okay with that. That's not a big deal to me. I think it's more of the fans wanting something like this to happen than, what I'm wanting to happen. I want to be able to retire in a couple of years, so I'm going to go wherever that takes me. but I have no problem doing the independents. I love it. I think it's I have a great time on the Indies, and I've had the opportunity to wrestle a lot of great wrestlers. Also doing Ring of Honor and New Japan. I mean, that's a good combination.
Oh, it's awesome. And like I said, you really kind of reinvented what the indie scene looks like, because, now you kind of get your mouth watering, your palate's all wet waiting for some of these dream matches. I know you have an upcoming one with Rey Mysterio that's, another huge one in the UK that everybody's talking about, and you really changed that perception of the big indie show. But, I got to ask this before you retire. You mentioned that. Is it something you still would love to do, is get that full-time, spot in WWE, performing at WrestleMania and seeing, what everybody's been doing in NXT, and really it being a gateway to this WWE superstardom now? Is it something you'd love to pursue before you retire?
I mean, like I said before, I want to, support my family, and I'm going to go wherever that takes me. Is it, would I like to have a WrestleMania moment? Sure. But I'm very content with having, a Wrestle Kingdom moment, from the 60,000 fans. I think that's pretty awesome, walking down the long ramp of the Tokyo Dome, and probably one of the bigger matches on the show. So, there's got to be people out there who want to do the same thing.
That is such an awesome way to say it, a Wrestle Kingdom moment. And I know John's going to get into it in a minute, but if you could, kind of take us into a Wrestle Kingdom moment and going out there and seeing the size of that crowd. And, of course, the American fans finally got a chance to see it on pay-per-view last year on the landscape that it was, and it was so well done. But take us into the arena if you can, and as you walk out there and, crowds that really do love your work and appreciate what you do, what's that like to get in front of them and perform on essentially their WrestleMania?
Dude, there's no way to describe it. It's amazing. And, having an entrance a little bit different than everybody else's was surprising to me. And then walking that long ramp, to the ring that's probably the coolest part, because I wanted a New Japan moment. I think before they were doing Wrestle Kingdom, I'd seen, the Tokyo Dome shows, and it was just amazing to see that long walk. And, that was one of the things that I wanted to do as a professional wrestler. And it's really cool that I get to do that. And the people out there, like you said, they love to see great wrestling. And I would like to think that me and Nakamura is a pretty big match for those guys over there. So, and around the world, we've been in tag matches before, but never one-on-one match. So it's something that's never been done before, and on one of the biggest stages in the world.
I had the pleasure of meeting you at an ROH. Well, I met you a few times, but it was one show in particular. It wasn't that long ago, and I had asked you about working Nakamura, and you kind of smiled at me and said, a little bit of a spoiler, yeah, I'll be wrestling on him. So I was very excited, because I was thinking it's going to be at Wrestle Kingdom, and it's going to be, a huge deal for the IC belt for New Japan. What's it like, thinking about wrestling Nakamura, who's probably one of the, if not one of the all-time greats? He's got to be in the top 10 consideration.
Oh man, it's going to be awesome. Super. I mean, like I said, the Tokyo Dome, wrestling one of the biggest stars in Japan, not just New Japan, in Japan. To wrestle him and knowing that we're going to have an incredible match, that's exciting. And in front of all those people and in front of the whole world, it doesn't get much better than that.
Absolutely. And I'm already thinking, possible match of the year is, hopefully everything works out the way it should, and definitely will be a match of the year contender, no doubt about that.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it does worry me that everybody thinks it's going to be the match of the year, that bar is so high. I'm like, oh, crap, I hope we're able to reach it. So, nevertheless, we're going to do our best. I mean, that's what we do. We don't go out there and do anything halfway. We go all the way. Even when I told, the office that, in New Japan, that the reason why I probably need to go home and get my back straightened out is because I got one gear. It's all or nothing. And if you put me in the ring, I'm probably going to hurt myself because I can't help it. It's just the way, and I would assume Nakamura is the same way.
Absolutely, and obviously you mentioned people are definitely setting the bar pretty high, expecting a great match, because basically the top four guys in New Japan, Okada, Tanahashi, yourself, and Nakamura, and obviously one way or another you guys are all wrestling each other. So definitely the bar is set high, and it's definitely amazing that that's going to be the match. But was that match presented to you, or was that something that you asked for?
Actually, it wasn't a match that I asked for. It wasn't, something that was presented to me. It was just one of those things like, I wonder, I was just guessing, and I'd heard that they were thinking about doing that when I talked to you. So I was hoping it'd go through. I wasn't for sure, but I'm glad it's going to happen in a month's time, and it's exciting.
Yeah, and what's crazy about that match is that you've been in New Japan for almost 2 years now, and the match hasn't happened. It seems like in today's wrestling, it's hard to say like, oh, everyone wrestles each other, whether it's on a throwaway show or it's on a big show. It just seems like New Japan perfectly waited for the absolute perfect time for you guys to finally, lock horns.
Well, the one great thing, they do many great things, but the one that I really think is great is that they, their head storylines are, the story was told, in a year's time. With Tanahashi and Okada, man, that's been a year-long story going on. Last year, Okada was going after the title and got beat by Tanahashi. Now it's totally reversed. I mean, it's just a great story that's happening.
Yeah, amazing, yeah, and to hold you and Nakamura off until this point was great because you guys are the top guys. Obviously, I'm going to get into Okada and Tanahashi in a second, but they kind of held you off from wrestling Nakamura for your whole time there. It's almost for like the perfect moment of this is the first time you guys lock horns, and you couldn't get a much bigger stage than Tokyo Dome at the Wrestle Kingdom.
It definitely is the perfect storm, man. I mean, I hope these, the fans are as excited as I am about this match. It seems like they are. It seems like that's the big thing. We've seen Okada and Tanahashi before. We've never seen AJ Styles and Nakamura, so it's something special.
Absolutely, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. And one thing that I was looking forward to, back when you first debuted with New Japan Pro Wrestling was dream matches with guys that you wouldn't think that you've wrestled. I mean, you wrestled Tanahashi before in TNA, but it was kind of a screw-up finish where it was kind of a little bit of a weird finish to the match. It kind of didn't play right. But, it was great that you were able to get these dream matches against Okada and Tanahashi in New Japan. But what was it like when you first debuted in New Japan Pro Wrestling and, boom, you're wrestling probably one of the top guys in the business in Okada, and, boom, you're going to win the IWGP World Heavyweight title?
It was surprising. But I definitely wasn't going to turn down the opportunity. I mean, it's not every day you come into a company into one of the biggest factions in wrestling, the Bullet Club, and also are presented as one of the top guys by beating the heavyweight champion for the title. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't.
What are your thoughts on your chemistry with Okada? Because the first match was great, and you guys, I believe, wrestled almost 4 or 5 times now. I'm trying to think of all your one-on-one matches, but they seem to get better and better each time. You guys just seem to have a great chemistry together. What is it about Okada?
It's hard to say what it is about a wrestler that makes him so good, but it's just that chemistry. They just, two guys get in there and they just tear it up together. Sometimes you just can't put your finger on it, and that's here it is. It's one of those you just got that. They say that it factor. He's got it. You're not sure what it is or what it means, but we understand that this guy's going to go out there and have a great match with anybody. So, and the more you wrestle someone, the better the match is going to be. And a lot of, I've wrestled Christopher Daniels a couple thousand times, and I feel like, every time we wrestle, like, oh, that was another great match, So, I mean, it just keeps getting better.
Absolutely, and you guys kind of exchanged the title a little bit back and forth as far as you being a 2-time champ and him winning it back from you. But the last match you guys had was amazing. I think it wasn't Dominion, but it was a show after that. But you guys had an amazing match. Did you after you're wrestling him, do you kind of just think to yourself like, man, this is going to turn some heads. This is match of the year kind of stuff. We're basically we're gold in the ring.
Well, I don't really think about that. I just think about, making sure that every match is a great one, no matter who I'm in the ring with. I remember, wrestling Suzuki in Corgan Hall, not thinking anything about the match or, expecting any, thing less than what I was going to give. But, people loved that match, and they talk about that match. So it's not one of those things that I go out there and think, oh yeah, this is going to be a 5-star match. I don't do that. I just go out there and try to do what I do best, and just tell that story that needs to be told.
You and Okada, absolutely amazing. But you mentioned that Minoru Suzuki match last year in the G1, and that match was probably the match of the tournament. Maybe arguably, there's a couple other good ones. You had an awesome one against Okada and Naito as well. But that match against Minoru Suzuki, that just everyone was talking about it, and a lot of people said it was the match of the year. Going into that match, obviously he's a legend, not only pro wrestling but MMA legend as well. Going into that match, you kind of had a feeling, like this is going to be a good one. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Nope, I literally did not, think about that, and that's why it was a surprise to me, that so many people commented on match of the year kind of candidate of that match. I didn't think anything about it. It's just one of those things. I'm like, that's not what I'm looking. When I put together a match, I'm not looking to go, oh, this is going to get match of the year, or are people going to give me 5 stars? I don't care about that stuff. I just want it to make sense, and the psychology is there to entertain folks. That's what it's about. It's not, if they're entertained, then they're going to come back to see you regardless of how the match turned out, and that's what you want.
Absolutely. And when you really look at that match, there's a couple good spots per se in the match, but the selling and the psychology was amazing, because I remember one spot. Obviously, he's trying to break your arm, so you're using your left arm. He does a knockout punch to you, but you don't sell it like people you normally see, where they fall back taking a punch. Like, you took it as if you actually got knocked out. Your knees buckled and you went down. You just talked about the ring psychology and the selling that was involved with that match, because that really put it over the top for a lot of fans.
Well, that's everything. The psychology is everything. That's why you watch a match and you're not sure why you loved it so much, because they didn't do any crazy things or anything you hadn't seen before. But it was like psychology and the selling that makes it a great match. A lot of people don't understand that. They think it's about the spots or the moves. It's not about that at all. It's about, sucking these people in, these fans in, and letting them become part of your match, and putting it together where everything makes sense. It's like your unconscious, it doesn't really, it's in your unconscious, right? Like, all the little things that happen in the match are in there, but you can't, that's why you can't really tell someone why it was such a great match, because every little thing they did, the smallest things, meant something. They weren't left out, which is so important. And, that's the key to a great match, is making sure all the little things and everything matches up, and not taking some of these head drops and getting right back up as nothing would have happened. It's selling is the key, and a lot of people don't know that. They want to get to the next spot because they think it's cool, but it's only cool if we sell to get there. It actually means something if we sell to get there. And, that's the hardest thing to learn. Moves in wrestling are easy. That's the easy part. It's the psychology and the selling. That's the hard part.
Absolutely. And without a doubt, obviously you're one of the best wrestlers in the world today, period. And that's a given. But everyone always says how good of an athlete you are. But then on the other, side of the coin, they always say you're probably the best seller in the business. Is that something that we kind of brushed upon a little bit, but is that something that's the main focus, really focusing on being, the best seller you can be in a match?
I take more pride in selling something than I actually do giving a move, because, if I can get people involved in thinking, oh my God, he really clobbered him with that one. He's probably really hurt right now. That's what I want. That's what you want in a match. It's what it's all about. That's psychology. You don't want wasted movement, basically. Make everything mean something. If everything means something, it all comes together at the end to this, the climax of the match, and that's when you get the finish.
Is there anybody that you learned selling from? Obviously, you learn from the business, maybe Rick Michaels or whoever, but who would just, attribute yourself with as far as being like a mentor? It's like, you're watching them, like, oh, I want to sell like this guy. Would it be like a Ricky Morton or somebody like that?
I don't really think there's anybody that really showed me how to sell. Now, there's guys like Jerry Lynn that told me, This is why you don't do, these certain moves toward the finish and stuff like that. And Christopher Daniels showed me how to, make something flow in a match, but never someone teach me how to sell. That's why it's some things, God, it's so hard to teach. But it's experience that I've learned from, that I think that's where the selling comes in. You figure out what works, and you try a little bit of everything, and and don't get me wrong, I've watched a lot of wrestling, and and sometimes I think about Kawada, back in the day, and how he would sell something, and he would go to his knee, then his hip, then his elbow, then his shoulder, and then finally roll to his back. I like that kind of stuff. Not every sell has to be a flat back bump. Sometimes it doesn't require that.
Absolutely true. And, I can definitely think about the Suzuki match, if I can mention it again, where as far as your selling, it was just amazing because it wasn't the traditional, back bump. It was whatever he was doing, and, whatever you were doing to him, it was looked like a legit fight, and looked like you guys were legit, hurting each other in there, which was great.
That's what we want. That's the name of the game.
And I kind of touched upon it before. I definitely wanted to mention it again, but Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace, if you will, obviously one of the best of all time, the top draw in New Japan. What was your feeling on your matches with him in New Japan? Because you guys tore the house down on numerous occasions. You guys had great matches and kind of made up for that weird match you guys had in TNA like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I thought there was a lot of protecting going on and in the weird match, but and probably one of my favorite matches has been with Tanahashi and the G1. To me, that was one of the best matches I've ever had. It was, it came down to everything meant something, like we just talked about. Everything meant something, and to the point where we had some fans in the front row crying. That's now I really feel like I've accomplished something when I can get that. So yeah, again, the more you wrestle somebody, the better that match should be. And I think we've done that, me and Tanahashi. There's, that's the great thing. It's not just Okada. It's not just Tanahashi or Nakamura. There's other guys out there I've had great matches with. Ibushi. It's just amazing. I just enjoy wrestling that roster.
It feels like anytime you're out there, you can have a match of the year with any of those guys. You just mentioned Kota Ibushi. Man, you guys had a 5-star match back a few months ago. That was just amazing, and the athleticism from that guy is just tremendous.
Oh man, he's brilliant. The stuff that he's able to do is just unthinkable, and he can do it, man. He really can, and I can't say enough great things about him. Every time we've gotten in the ring, we've had great matches. It's not every day you get in the ring with someone the first time you wrestle, and you have a great match. That usually isn't the case. It was with him. It was with Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe. Those guys I got in the ring, we had an incredible match first time we ever touched. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't happen every day. It's really hard to come by. And Ibushi is definitely one of those guys.
And even Naito, who is highly regarded in Japan. Maybe he's not on quite the level of popularity as a Tanahashi or an Okada, but he's definitely on that second tier of popularity. And now he's obviously a big villain over there. But Naito, you worked at the Tokyo Dome, and then you guys had a classic at the G1 last year. So Naito is another awesome wrestler that New Japan just throws out there, and you're able to have an amazing match with.
It's crazy, man. That roster is full of great wrestlers. That's what's so fun about New Japan, is that literally you can get in the ring and, make sure, your job is to make each other, very entertaining. That's what we do. And every one of those guys, I'm able to accomplish that with.
And not even mentioning Makabe and Goto, who were just amazing, and you were able to have a great match with Yano as well, who was a little bit more comedic, and you guys did a little bit more fun stuff, but still were able to have a great fun match. Yeah,
man, like I said something to one of the guys the other day, is that there's no different wrestlers, completely opposites, me and Yano, but every time I've gotten in the ring with him, it's been a quality match. Like, it's been fun, it's been entertaining. Every part of that wrestling match or pro wrestling that you want, we've done. And it's worked. It's one of those guys, again, it's the New Japan roster.
It's crazy. And then you even get some gaijins. like Lance Archer last year in the tournament, he said that when we had him on, he said that was the best match he ever had was against you in the tournament last year in the G1.
You know, it just I think it's a lot of give and take and stuff like that. You just got to be willing to, you know, understand who you're getting in the ring with and what it is about them that makes them special, and capitalize on that. You know, a lot of people can't bring themselves to, you know, be as giving when they're, you know, like I'll take this, I'll take that, but I'm not taking that move. Like, you got to be giving. It's a back and forth, and we got to make each other look great, you know. But you got to be willing to help each other out and make your opponent look special. And I thought that we did a really good job of doing that, the both of us, in that match.
And you know what's great too is that you were able to have a great match with Carl Anderson, who's obviously in the Bullet Club with you, and you guys kind of had fun with it, and were able to have an amazing match. But the Bullet Club, in and of itself, is just the hottest faction in wrestling, and it's so over. And if you see any of the shows, even any show in the United States, people in the audience, like at least 50, you'll see 50 T-shirts of the Bullet Club. It's just so over, and it's so popular. And it's funny that Prince Devitt was there, and he's gone, so you figure maybe the faction might die, and all of a sudden the faction becomes more popular once they get you in it. What is it about the Bullet Club, you know, that resonates so much with the fan?
I think they see a bunch of guys out there having fun. Bottom line, when we're going out there, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're having a good time when we're out there and just being ridiculous. And people see that and they go, you know what? I like that guy. You know, I like this group of guys. That's if I got into wrestling and I was in a group, I'd want to be in the Bullet Club because those guys just goof off the whole time. You know, don't get me wrong, you get serious once we step in that ring, but, you know, outside of the ring, it's a little crazy sometimes.
And obviously everyone kind of makes the correlation, Bullet Club, NWO, you know, you guys do, you know, the Too Sweet, and, you know, you guys are showing your personality kind of almost in a tribute, but, you know, jokingly in a tribute to the NWO. What do you think about the comparisons between the NWO and the Bullet Club?
I would think that I think it's more of a combination of DX and NWO more than it is just NWO. I would think that if DX would have been in WCW, that's the way it would have been the Bullet Club. You know, that's the way it would have been. It just a bunch of guys goofing off, doing things that haven't been done before. You know, that's because we got a little bit of DX in us. We're not afraid to tell someone to suck it. So, you know, and it's just a tribute to things that we loved when we watched wrestling.
Absolutely. It's like the perfect storm of wrestlers in the group. Because obviously, you know, you got the young boy, Cody Hall, which is a tribute to the NWO, with Scott Hall obviously being his dad. And then you get the big guy, Bad Luck Fale, and you got Gallows as like the strong guy. Carl Anderson's like a perfect Arn Anderson type, but, you know, enforcer of the group. And then you is, you know, the kind of pseudo leader, but kind of like the Flair role where you're the best wrestler. And then you got the fun guys like Tonga and the Young Bucks. I just think, you know, what is your thing? Do you think it's like a perfect storm of great talent?
I think we got a little bit of everything, you know, and we give a little bit of everything to, you know, what people want to see. We can do it all, and that's what makes us fun. I think that's what makes us the best faction in pro wrestling right now, is that we go out there, we do what we want, whenever we want, and how we want, and that's just the way we do it, man. Absolutely,
and I love talking about New Japan, and I love their relationship with Ring of Honor because it's just great to see. Because the rumor is that Jay Lethal and Elgin are going to have a match at the Tokyo Dome show, and obviously there's been many crossover shows with New Japan doing the World War and the Global War from the States. So I just love the ROH New Japan dynamic and kind of the team they got together, and it's just perfect fit for you, like you said, having both, you know, working for both at the same time, and they do joint shows. What do you think about the relationship with ROH and New Japan? Do you think nothing but positives out of that?
Absolutely. It's definitely a positive. You know, I would think that, you know, definitely Ring of Honor is benefiting from New Japan. New Japan's the second biggest wrestling company in the world and growing. So it's definitely a plus for Ring of Honor. And, you know, Ring of Honor has their guys come over to Japan and people get to know them and they get a little bit more invested in Ring of Honor and New Japan all at the same time. I mean, it's the best of both worlds, especially if you're working for both companies.
And obviously coming up next Friday night in Philly, the big final battle show against Jay Lethal, and hopefully, you're good to go doing some DDPY. You're good to go there. But what are your thoughts on Jay Lethal? He's had a great run. He was TV champ, recently lost that title, but great run with the Ring of Honor title, and he seems to be coming into his own with Truth Martini over there in the House of Truth.
Jay Lethal's always been a great wrestler. There's no doubt about it, and he's always been a good talker on the mic. I mean, the guy can go. He's a little bit of everything that you want in a professional wrestler. Why he wasn't picked up by WWE is beyond me. I don't get it. Why he was let go by TNA is just stupid. But things happen for a reason. And, Jay's doing really well in Ring of Honor, and he deserves all the accolades that, people give him. I mean, he's one of the best in the world right now. Obviously, he's the Ring of Honor champion. He has a title I want to win. And I think that it's definitely going to be one of those matches that people will remember. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be everything that people want to see.
And are you a big fan of working in Philly in that crazy atmosphere that seems to always be with the crazy Philly fans?
Listen, the first time I went to Ring of Honor, it was in Philly, and it was the best experience that I've had in wrestling at that point. And it would open my eyes to see so many different kinds of wrestling going on. I love that crowd, that they make wrestling. They made ECW. They made ROH. The Philly crowd is one of the best in the world, man. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Absolutely, and very fond memories of some of your early ROH matches. I had the pleasure of being in Philadelphia and even, of course, New Jersey and a bunch of other places for your early ROH run. But if I could just bring up one point you kind of mentioned about Jay Lethal, and you said that TNA was crazy for letting him go. But I'm kind of thinking a different direction. TNA was crazy for letting you go. I know much was said about the release, or not really release. It was just the contract offer that was made to them. But were you kind of just absolutely shocked that Mr. TNA, AJ Styles, wasn't, being more of, basically you weren't being thought of more highly, that you should have been immediately re-signed and continue to be the face of TNA wrestling?
That's the reality of the business, man. If they don't think you're going to put butts in the seats, then you're not valuable. At least I didn't think that was valuable with the money they were offering. So they may have said they wanted me badly, but they didn't show it. And the result is me going off and doing my own thing and doing well for myself. Everything happens for a reason. And, I'm not sad that I left. I've done great things since I've been gone. So, I'm not mad at them. I don't hate TNA. I hope they go out of business or anything like that. It's just part of the business. And I understand that now. A young AJ Styles wouldn't. But business is business. You got to do what's best for business. And I say that because I'm going to do what's best for AJ Styles' business. I'm going to go where the business takes me.
And it's funny, like your departure from them, you would think like, oh, what's going to happen to AJ now? You became, obviously you were one of the best, but now you're in the forefront of being one of the best in the world because of New Japan Pro Wrestling and Ring of Honor, and you're just dominating the scene. Any independent show you're going on is just, you know that you're going to put butts in the seats. You know that it's going to be a great house, and you know that you're going to have a great match. And it's funny that TNA is kind of floundering because, they don't have AJ Styles anymore, quite frankly, and they don't have a couple other guys either, like the Samoa Joes of the world and Christopher Daniels. And, they're kind of they're on Pop TV, and a lot of people don't have Pop TV, and then Destination America, that whole mess there. So it's funny how things work out, and it's very smart of you, business-wise, to, not get mad at that and kind of just do your own thing. You think, it obviously worked out for the best for you.
Absolutely. There's no question. I'm in the best place I could possibly be right now in my career. So, like I said, everything happens for a reason. And, it was one of those things I was hesitant at first because I didn't know the future of AJ Styles. But, got Ring of Honor, got in there. First match was in Nashville, which was kind of ironic. And then, a couple of months later in New Japan, and it's exploded. It really has. And I'm just happy to be in the position that I'm in.
He's had an unbelievable run, and I was just thinking back to some of the matches that, we were talking about match of the year you had in New Japan, but match of the year that you had in Ring of Honor, Michael Elgin, you guys had a great chemistry, and you guys had great matches. Roddy Strong, you guys had a good match. It's just thinking of all the great matches, and then thinking of like a Kyle O'Reilly. You kind of, not that he wasn't on the map, but you kind of elevated him a little bit. And then there was a guy like Adam Cole, who you guys just completely tore the house down. What are your thoughts of some of these guys? Because the ROH roster is completely different than what it used to be.
Absolutely. I mean, but this is, it's a great roster. Not that the one they had before, wasn't, but this one is, you just got to, as time goes on, you're going to have new faces in there, and those new faces have, stepped the bar up. They may be young, but that they definitely know what they're doing out there, and it shows with the response that people are giving Ring of Honor. I mean, it's a lot like New Japan. It's a great place to work.
And then, of course, your good buddies. Well, Samoa Joe made a brief appearance there, but your good buddies Kaz and Daniels also returned to Ring of Honor, which is great. But it's funny when you think of you and Kaz and Daniels, you always got to think of, I know I'm like skipping around a little bit, but thinking of them being in Ring of Honor, you being in Ring of Honor, you can't help but think of that Claire Lynch storyline that you guys were a part of. And I was shocked because we interviewed Daniels and we interviewed Kaz, and they both kind of liked it at first. They were kind of both into the storyline at first. What was your take on that whole Claire Lynch saga?
Well, you got to understand that it was going to be a great storyline until the little things that had to be in there in the story to make it work weren't. Claire had to be the niece of Dixie Carter. That was very important because why else would I care? I would never stick my neck out for someone who was a family friend. I mean, what's that got to do with me? Why wouldn't you just help them? But if it were her niece, then I have, to keep from bad publicity getting to TNA, then I'll make sure that no one knows about it. That was a big deal. And Claire had to be smoking hot. I mean, unbelievably hot. To the point where you go, wow, if AJ did have sex with her, I don't blame him. That's what we need to have. But it was quite the opposite. And so it was the little things that destroyed, that momentum that we had where people thought that, I may be with Dixie. It was a great thing. We had all that momentum, and then this Claire comes out and screws it all up, a friend of the family, and she looked like a foot. All that kind of stuff screws it up.
It was a mess, and it kind of didn't really make sense. And it's crazy because Daniels and Kaz are unbelievable wrestlers, and then you're involved, and it's almost like, wait, these guys are so good in the ring, and they can do so much more. You screw up a storyline, like that could have been huge.
Yeah, it really could have been good, but I don't know if they just didn't want that to be part of the storyline because I don't know, because they didn't want someone to think that they actually had a niece who was hooked on drugs or something. I don't know. But I think when you're out there, you got to really put yourself on the line as far as a promoter. Like, if you get on TV, then you're a character as well. And so you got to really put it out there. That's just the nature of the business. Vince McMahon has done a little bit of everything. He's, peed his pants, somebody's kissed his butt on TV. All this stuff has happened. He's going to do what puts butts in the seats, and I respect that.
Vince, he definitely will do that, and Dixie obviously wouldn't. But it was interesting the way you left the company. Obviously, you beat Bully Ray for the title. Great match, great brawl. They have the whole Aces and Eights thing, which is, a different story for a different day. Cause it's very weird Aces and Eights storyline. But you beat Bully, you're the champ, but then you're gone, which was very cool. I definitely like that storyline because it was almost like, is he really gone? Because there was the rumors of you not having a contract. But then, you come back and Magnus is the champion. You wrestle Magnus, and instead of Magnus, kind of not beating you clean, but you're on your way out. Do you think it was weird that they kind of made you lose in the most strongest way ever? There was about 10 or 20 run-ins, and they, 20 people giving you a finish. You think that was kind of a weird way to leave the company?
Not for me. I thought it was a great way to leave the company. But I'm pretty sure the agent of that match was Jeff Jarrett. So I think that's where it's coming from.
Oh, makes sense. Good old Jeff. And obviously, you guys continue to have a great relationship. What is your, relationship like with Jeff?
It's a good relationship, I think a lot of Jeff. I mean, he put me on top in TNA, so I mean, and we've had our weird moments and stuff like that, with Jeff being the boss and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's been very positive, and I'll never forget what Jeff done for me. He gave me an opportunity, he gave me a stage to make AJ Styles a name, that people wouldn't forget. So great relationship.
And obviously, Jeff's doing his Global Force thing now, and starting to pick up steam. He's starting to tape some TV episodes and stuff. Has he ever approached you about doing Global Force?
We had talked about it when he first started getting it started, but just with Ring of Honor and New Japan and stuff like that, I had no time for pretty much anything else. And so just the schedule wise, nothing ever really came about that I could be on. So.
You definitely, obviously have a long storied history with him, and within TNA, you guys had a long storied history. But kind of a weird thing happened in TNA at about the 2009 mark. You're the world champ. You just beat the Icon Sting, and you're kind of headed in a positive direction. And they kind of turn some things around. They bring the Bischoff Hogan era in, and Jeff is kind of pushed off to the side. Did you think? At that point it was a good idea, or did you always kind of say, I don't know about this, Hogan and Bischoff thing. I don't know if it's going to work out.
Well, I first of all just tried to stay positive. I mean, pretty much anything Hulk Hogan touched, at least at the beginning, turned to gold. So that's what I put in my brain that was going to happen when I was at TNA. And, it didn't, obviously, because he brought the guys over here. I don't think that he knew the roster that was in front of him, which was the problem. There were names, people were, brand names of TNA but they had no idea who they were. And so if they didn't know who they were, then they just kind of did whatever they wanted with it. They wanted me to dye my hair blonde and be Little Rick. And just because they didn't know me, I think, instead of being Ric Flair, I needed to be AJ Styles with Ric Flair. Because being with Rick, is definitely, I'll get the rub from Rick. There's no doubt about that. And Fortune, I thought it could have been great, but they broke up Fortune a little bit too early. I think we were really getting some steam, and then they broke us up, and then nothing came about it. But it was things like that, I guess, that got weird, and Hogan, it seemed like he didn't have much to do with TNA. I don't know if he was embarrassed of the show, because he never said anything about TNA at all. Even when he was on shows and whatnot, he just never mentioned it. I believe that he was ashamed of what was on TV. I believe if TNA were doing a lot better, he'd been a lot more gung ho about saying a lot more about it. But he didn't say a word, and it bothered me, But thinking back, I understand it now.
Definitely, and you kind of would think with Hogan, he wrestled sporadically in TNA, but obviously his wrestling career was over. You kind of think he would be more of like an ambassador, if you will, for TNA at that point.
Yeah, exactly. I thought that's what he was brung in for, to do exactly that, promote TNA on anything and everything that he was on, but he did quite the opposite.
Very, very strange, and the weird part about that is, he did get one huge, gigantic rating, but right before that, when you guys had the Main Event Mafia versus the Frontline, it was kind of the originals versus the Main Event Mafia, you guys were getting huge ratings, and the numbers were up and up and up, and you versus Sting was a highly successful feud, and they kind of went away from that. And what was your thoughts on, the Main Event Mafia and them kind of going away from you and Sting, which was, like the money storyline?
I can't remember exactly what I was thinking at that moment, but it seems like so many times that once something was getting hot, they'd shut it down. And I never knew why they would do something like that. And the Main Event Mafia, during that time, you're right, the ratings were high. I think they got to the point where they feel like they should be getting better ratings. They should be getting Raw kind of ratings, but it was growing. It was getting bigger, and so they tried to go, a little bit harder and spend a little bit more money to get guys that we didn't necessarily need, and that was the downfall.
It absolutely, definitely, it led to the downfall of TNA for sure. And as I start to wind it down a little bit here, and I kind of want to skip back to a little bit of your TNA run, but definitely some of your ROH run as well. And got to mention, because we only mentioned him briefly before, but that's Samoa Joe. Obviously, he's in NXT now, and hopefully he gets brought up to the main roster because God knows they need him. But he's one of the best in the world for sure. And you guys just always seemed like the chemistry was there. And I mean, it seemed like you guys were killing each other. You guys were having a lot of fun. What's it like wrestling Samoa Joe throughout the years and just being able to put on 5-star matches?
Oh man, he's one of the best. There's no doubt. And the fact that he's doing so well in NXT is just awesome. And you're right, he needs to be brought up to the main roster very, very soon. But again, he's one of those guys you can get in the ring first time and have a great match with.
You guys had, some classic matches. And, I remember even Unbreakable 2005, that the three-way was the match of the year, you, Daniels, and Samoa Joe. Did you ever, look back at some of your old matches, especially that one, and say, I know you don't really say match of the year per se, but you ever say, like, man, that's one for the resume, like that, one for the highlight reel. That was tremendous.
Yeah, there's been some times where we were on, I think we were in the ECW arena, and we had it was a house show.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, guys, I think we just messed around and had an amazing match. The stuff that we did was just unbelievable. And you didn't think about it because we're just putting it together. It's no big deal. After it was over, you're like, holy cow, that was awesome.
Yes, I was actually in attendance that night. It was the Hardcore War. And I remember you guys weren't the main event, and I was shocked. But you guys, it was the match of the night. And I was like, oh, my God, what a great match.
Yeah, I don't think we weren't the main event. I think that the 3D was the Dudley Boys were the main event. I want to believe against maybe Road Dogg and Kip James or Billy Gunn, whatever they called him.
Yep.
But still, everybody back then everybody brought something different to the table. And we were in three-way. They were in a tag match. It got crazy at the end of the show. I mean, regardless, it was a great show.
Absolutely. And I got to ask, because I know we always ask the wrestlers kind of like, the generic question, but with you, it's definitely something, everyone's very curious about it. Being one of the best wrestlers in the world, looking back, do you have a favorite match or maybe a couple of favorite matches that really stick out to you that, you really enjoy being a part of?
I never really look at it like that. I mean, I hear people ask me about different matches and whatnot, but I think that's the thing that's most important is that, what was your favorite match? That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter what my favorite match is, because I've had tons of them. There's a lot of matches I've had where that was great. That was really fun. I've had a bunch of them. But, it's what other people think that make it important, because if they don't enjoy, every match to some degree, then I don't have a job. So I think that's more of a question for the fans of pro wrestling.
And I think that their list would get almost too long, with especially with your New Japan matches and your Ring of Honor matches, where almost every one would be a favorite. And one that I could think of way back, I believe it was 2004 or 2003. You and Bryan Danielson in ROH main event spectacles. Great match. What were your thoughts on Bryan Danielson? Wrestling him then, obviously he was a huge star for ROH, but did you ever foresee him being, one of the top dogs in the business and leaving WrestleMania with the world title?
There's a lot of guys that I looked at that could be top stars that were, we're all wrestling together back then in ROH. There were tons of guys. But, I'm happy for Bryan that he was able to accomplish, not only a WrestleMania moment, but winning the world heavyweight title. I mean, that's something special, man, and nobody deserves it more than him. I hope that he's able to get back in. You hear all these rumors about what's going on. You never know what to believe and whatnot, but I hope that he gets the opportunity to stick with it a little bit longer and do what he loves.
Now, I got to ask you this. I don't even know if you're really going to have an answer for it, but he recently, as of yesterday, just had an interview with somebody overseas, and he said that maybe he wrestled his last match, for WWE, meaning that his doctor cleared him. He should be able to wrestle. WWE just won't clear him. Would you kind of open him or bring him back with open arms and love to wrestle him maybe in ROH or even New Japan?
I don't think you'd be a fool not to. I mean, it's Daniel Bryan, or who we can call him Bryan Danielson, whichever one you want. This is the same guy. Like, he's amazing. And I think if somebody snatched him up, man, they're one lucky company, whoever it is.
And it's funny, there's another guy floating around, and he recently said he wouldn't come back to WWE for $50 million. So, I mean, that's where he stands as far as WWE and wrestling. But guy you wrestled with quite a few times and had a classic with Ricky Steamboat as a referee over down in New Jersey, but you wrestled CM Punk a few times. What's your thoughts on Punk? And obviously, he's quote-unquote done with the wrestling business.
Well, I mean, if I had made as much money as him that I could retire and do something else, with my life, probably do the same thing. I haven't reached that level yet, but good on him. I mean, the ultimate goal in this business is to retire. Hopefully, not in a wheelchair or with too many injuries. But that's the goal for me. It is, at least, is that this is my job. This is what I do. And if the opportunity comes that I can retire, and still be able to play with my kids, and that's the ultimate goal for me. Like I said, this is a job. This is what we do. This is our career.
Absolutely, and obviously, Punk has moved on to UFC, and hopefully he'll fight sometime this summer. You have any predictions on what would happen in a CM Punk UFC fight?
Nope. I mean, I guess it all depends on who he's fighting.
Yeah, I guess there's some rumors circling around that they're going to get, an 0-0 fighter to fight him, and maybe like an amateur guy. So I don't know. Hopefully, he's got some good chances. But if I could just, ask you about your favorite opponents, because you've had so many. Jerry Lynn sticks out, and we talked to Jerry Lynn, and he said you were one of his favorite opponents as well. But do you have a favorite opponent or opponents you've had in your illustrious career?
Well, it seems like the longer my career goes on, the more guys I enjoy wrestling, and Jerry's definitely one of those guys. Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, Frankie Kazarian, those guys. Kurt Angle, you can get in the ring with any of those guys and have a great match. Evan Bourne or Matt Sydal, whatever you want to, there's Tanahashi, Okada, even Yano and Naito. There's so many guys out there that I've wrestled. Go, oh my God, that was such a great match. But I think it takes experience to get to that level where you could have so many great matches. I'm pretty sure if I look back at a lot of my older matches, I'd be disgusted with them. But back then I thought they were incredible. So I think the list is just too long to even try to mention all of them. But there's so many guys that I've had great matches with. There's some guys I've had great matches with that nobody's ever heard of. So the list goes on.
Absolutely, and so many amazing opponents, and so many guys, pick you out as your, their favorite opponent, or say that, you're the best in the business today. But is there a guy out there that you haven't been able to wrestle that, is a quote-unquote dream match for you that you can't wait to, lock it up with?
Well, I mean, I think that dream match is going to happen in the UK with Rey Mysterio. I've been in the same ring with him. I don't think we ever touched, though, but in WCW. But, I'm going to have to, I'm going to get to have that match. It's going to be fun to be in there with him, and I think that it just, we're going to have a great match. That's what I'm looking forward to anyway. And, I'm just glad he didn't retire before I had the opportunity.
Now, in WCW with Air Paris, maybe I'm wrong. You never actually wrestled Rey Mysterio. That's great. That's unbelievable for the UK fan.
Yep, it'll be the first time.
Oh, interesting. I was thinking that you and Air Paris may have wrestled Kidman and Ray in a tag match, but no. I know you guys wrestled Helix Skipper and Kid Romeo.
Yep.
You had a bunch of other matches. Oh, okay. So that
I wouldn't say a bunch of other matches. I think I had 4 more other matches.
Yeah, true. But that'll definitely be a treat for the UK fans for sure. And then the Nakamura match is another absolute dream match, that fans are clamoring for. But one final question I got to ask, and it's kind of a big one, and sometimes it's hard for the guys to kind of put into words. But AJ Styles, the phenomenal one, one of the greatest of all time. What would you say would be your lasting legacy on the wrestling business? What is the final stamp that you would have to put on the business?
I think that if people want, if you ask somebody about AJ, I would hope that they would say, "Man, he was just a good dude. He's just easy to wrestle. Very accommodating and just a good person. Not just I could care less if that I'm remembered as a great wrestler, but it's more to me to be remembered as a good guy. Someone that you could talk to, or you're not afraid to ask if you could do this or that, and that I was very giving with everything, that I presented in a wrestling ring or out of the wrestling ring. That's the legacy I'd like to leave behind.
Absolutely, and you kind of hit it on it before, but it's amazing to hear, you have such great ring psychology, and you kind of said, selling above the athleticism. You saying, like, the most important part of wrestling to you, I guess, would be the actual psychology of the match.
Absolutely, there's no question.
AJ, I'd like to thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos,